For sure.
So as this sort of gets more real for the established financial sector, obviously, banks are new to crypto. Your recent guidance has certainly opened the door for banks as custodians, as payment infrastructure providers, sort of to begin to open up to this kind of fundamental innovation. And I know, front row seat on this for the last 7 years. In the past, and certainly very much still, there's been a lot of focus within the banking sector on risk and compliance issues. As banks wade into this, what are the core risk and compliance issues that banks need to be looking at as they begin to add these kinds of rails, this kind of digital asset infrastructure, other things? What are the major issues for them to think about?
Yeah, well, so there are a number of issues, but I would start with the obvious issue of BSA AML, which we talked about. That's always going to be the most important thing in any kind of a publicly accessible money transmission network. So figuring that out and getting that right is always going to be, I think, job number one. But there are a bunch of other things too. So banks are used to managing the technology and operational risk associated with ACH and SWIFT.
Sure.
And by the way, those risks are not trivial. I mean, the percentage of chargebacks and fraud and other errors on those networks is shockingly high. Mm-hmm. So it's not like banks are not used to that risk or don't have practices for managing it. Yeah. But connecting to blockchains is a little bit different because on a blockchain, you can't get the money back, right? Mm-hmm. So once it's gone, right. It's gone. Right. Or if you can get the money back, it's only through like a 51% attack or something, which is right. even worse than the money being gone. Somebody can rewrite the ledger if they have enough computing power. So at least on certain kinds of blockchains. So those are things that we need to think about, technology and operational risk for sure. And then of course, there's the issue at a broader level, and this is not for an individual bank to manage, but it is something the system has to think about, which comes back to something you said earlier. It's sort of about money supply and monetary policy and how do we think about these digitized assets. Yeah. Yes, they're fully reserved, and so the binding constraint is the amount of M1 that the Fed puts into the economy. Yeah. But as the velocity of money gets faster and faster, how confident can we be that at any given moment in time, those one-to-one relationships between reserves and stablecoins are being maintained? And if they're not being maintained, what does it do to the actual money supply? And since money supply affects interest rates and it affects inflation and other kinds of things, we need to think about all of those things. So I think there are a number of things to manage through. But what I come back to, Jeremy, is for people who say, well, that's a lot of risk, so I don't think we can manage through it. What I say is it's inevitable that we have to manage through it. In America, in a market democracy, the consumer rules. And when you get to a place where 40 or 50 million people want something, they're going to have it. And it's only an issue of us doing the hard work to figure out what the framework is for it. I always come back to the Uber example. Every municipal government in America wanted to ban Uber. And the only reason they failed is because too many tens of millions of Americans said, no,
too good of a
service.
Yeah.
Yeah.